the difference between hope and hopelessness when you come through this from a psychological point of view. There are people who feel that it's a hopeless scenario.
This is such an important subject, and in a way it goes back to something Al Gore said in An Inconvenient Truth, which is that people seem to have a capacity to flip from complacency to hopelessness without any kind of in-between position. And I think it is very hard to find an in-between position. One of the lessons which I think can be drawn out of the radical hope theme is that we have to try to locate a pathway which doesn't tip or slip into either paralysed hopelessness, despair, on the one hand, or delusional hope on the other. And that is very, very difficult. And I think it's one example of what climate psychology can contribute to climate activism, because I think that René Lertzman, a very, very active colleague in the United States, has made this point very, very eloquently, that climate activism tends to be informed, or to date has been largely informed by a very cognitive emphasis in psychology and communications theory, in which the very difficult and negative feelings to some extent get displaced. And you can see this in a lot of climate activism, that people that we must be positive, we must keep going, and so on. And that's all very good up to a point, but if it's resulting in an internal split and a dissociation from the difficult feelings, then I think it has a way of undermining the integrity of one's own position and everything that one's communicating. And I think it's very counterproductive. And of course it can alienate those who are struggling with very difficult feelings and make them, for instance, feel guilty about the fact that they're not going on being positive. Yeah. It's terribly important to get through it somehow or other, but to be able to make a space and to recognise and accept as legitimate the very, very painful feelings that this subject generates in anyone who is wise enough or foolish enough to open themselves to the subject. In a way, this may be a little bit of an evasion of our psychological theme, but I think that in one quite important way, things have been made a little bit easier for us by the what I think is fair to call the solar revolution. That technology is a tricky subject because I think there's a danger of slipping into thinking that technology will solve all our problems, and there's a very valid critique of that, which is that we can't use the same things to solve the problem that we've used to create it in the first place. But I think that doesn't quite wash as an answer. And I think that what's so important and hopeful now about the solar revolution is that it opens up the possibility of a narrative that will unite people. It comes in a way back to your question about breaking out of a relatively small group of people who are determined to stay engaged with the climate and ecological issue. Yeah. And that there's this huge diversity and difference of view within psychology, and therefore inevitably its application to this subject. There's huge diversity and difference in terms of political response, and amongst activists. You've only got to look at the controversy around nuclear energy, and quite a lot of fairly embittered. I haven't got this direct from source, but I read somewhere recently that Naomi Oreskes had accused Jim Hansen of denial when he advocated nuclear energy as part of the solution. I can't validate that myself, but it certainly highlighted an issue that I'm generally aware of. Whereas the solar revolution now, with the possibility of solar fuels that can overcome the intermittency of wind and solar output, that does raise the possibility of a unifying narrative, because we're within sight of those sources becoming cheaper than fossil fuels. Yeah. So that hugely expands the possibility of political consensus, although the fossil fuel industry will no doubt continue to fight with every means at its disposal to slow that process.
Are we talking about the narrative of solar being a unifying thing? Because in many respects it doesn't solve things like negative emissions, which are still going to drive us, even if we stopped emitting now, we're still going to go much higher than 3 degrees.
I'm really glad you're playing devil's advocate on this one. I would hate to have left it that I was seeing the solar revolution as the answer to all our problems. So thank you for that.
Was that the context, though? Is that what you mean? You create, there are these narratives that are emerging. One of the things around Hinkley Point, and a lot of people are more disgusted around the price than any other. I think it's expensive, and by the time it comes online, there probably will be a much more diverse choice of cheaper fuels.
But again, it's just down the road from me, and I feel I'm somewhere in the middle of a kind of wave of despair over that decision. Largely because it seems to me to be a reminder of a mixture of vested interests and 20th century thinking, which is not appropriate for the problems of our time.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, I think your word narrative is appropriate.